The only reason I'm making this video right now is to just get my true and official thoughts out of the way, so that way you guys can at least get my perspective on the entire situation. So, Volition did officially get shut down. I did make a video previously. I ended up just taking it down because I just felt like the video didn't really have much to say. I wasn't really in the mood to really talk more about Volition or about Deep Silver or about Saints Row in general. I'm going to be honest with you guys, after this video, do not expect to see a lot of Saints Row related content. You'll see content based on other games. I can promise you that. I plan on playing other games in the future. I don't plan on talking that much about Saints Row, at least for now. I have no interest in talking about this series at the moment, but let's kind of just talk about what exactly happened and how we got here. At the end of August, it was officially announced that Embracer Group was officially shutting down Volition Studios as a game company after 30 years of developing some really great titles and some not so good titles, which are like at least 2 or maybe 3, if I can be completely honest. Some people can say that Saints Row the Third was a bad game. Some people can say that Saints Row 4 was a bad game. I don't think that's really the case. I just feel like those are games that didn't really go in the same direction as games like Saints Row 1 or Saints Row 2. And I feel like after Saints Row the Third, despite it being more wacky and ridiculous, I felt like they could have turned it around and did something differently than what we got with Saints Row 4, but clearly we didn't get that. And that's fine, because Saints Row 4 is still a game that I would continue to play. Same with Saints Row the Third. I enjoy both of those games equally, if I'm being completely honest. And as much as people want to fully place the blame on Volition, I feel like a lot of the attention doesn't really get pointed towards Deep Silver or Embracer when it comes to the shutdown of Volition, or even just the entire catastrophe that was the Saints Row reboot. And in my personal opinion, and based on what I've seen from other individuals, including people who've worked closely with Volition, this includes YouTubers like Flippy or even Mr. Saints Godzilla, apparently the Saints Row reboot was not supposed to be what we got. In fact, it was supposed to actually be Saints Row 2.5. Well, and in that certain realm of seriousness and tone. But unfortunately, what we got was what we got. And apparently, because of the creative decisions made by Deep Silver, that's the reason the reboot was pushed in that direction. And that's what caused a lot of the backlash and negativity towards this game. And I don't know what it is. In fact, I'm just going to link Flippy's video somewhere in the description. So just please check that out, so that way you guys can get a full understanding, rather than just vaguely assuming that it's only Volition, that Volition are the problem, and that this, that, and the third. And while, yeah, I can say that Volition didn't really do a good job with this reboot, and I wish they did a way better job when it comes to just the gameplay itself. Like, it's understandable if you make a game that just has a really bad story, as long as the gameplay is good. And the perfect example is the game you're literally seeing right now as the foreground, which I'm going to be talking about that in a second, something related to that. Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 has one of the worst stories in relation to the Borderlands series. And it's mainly because of some of the creative choices that went into that game. And I'm not going to go into that. I'm just saying, like, the story of that game wasn't that great. I didn't really mind it that much. I just don't think it's really that good. But the gameplay in that game is actually good. However, with the Saints Row reboot, not only does it have a really, really bad story that doesn't make any sense, but it also has really, really bad gameplay, which makes it worse. That's been the point of my review. That's been the point of several other people's reviews, was that the game itself is just boring. It's bland. It's just tasteless. It's like unseasoned chicken. It's awful. Just horrible. Outright dated and just bad altogether. It makes Saints Row 2 look like it was literally released the year before. How? I don't get that. And the worst part about Volition shutting down, unfortunately, has to do with Saints Row 2's patch just potentially never coming out. I feel like that's something that we can all fairly say, and I'm not just being mean or trolling or any of that sort of thing. I genuinely feel that the Saints Row 2 patch is never going to release. if I'm being completely honest. I don't think Deep Silver cared at all about the Saints Row series, and I feel like the budget towards a potential patch for a game that was released back in the year 2008 is something that they probably don't care about. So because of that, I can honestly with confidence say that I don't think the Saints Row 2 patch is ever going to release. And with that being the case, I don't know. This is just how I view things when it comes to this entire situation. And it's not like Volition was the only studio that was affected by what basically is going on. And I didn't even talk about the exact reason to why Volition was shut down in the first place. Because in reality, there was a $2 billion deal with another company titled Savvy Games that apparently fell through. And because of this, Embracer was basically forced to shut down a few studios, and at the moment they're currently thinking about selling one of their biggest studios. And the big company that's being affected by this, not only with layoffs, but potentially getting sold to a completely different company as well, that being Gearbox. Yes, Gearbox. The same Gearbox who's responsible for games like the Borderlands series, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and several other games that also exist. So basically what I got out of this whole situation is that a company like Volition gets shut down, and a company like Gearbox is more than likely going to get sold to a completely different publisher and or parent company. That's happening all because a company like Embracer is just financially irresponsible with all of their money. And to me, that's kind of just sad altogether. I do feel bad for the people who did end up losing their jobs at Volition, and I also feel bad for the people who ended up losing their jobs at Gearbox simply because of the layoffs that they're doing. But now this is just a whole nother situation, and I don't want to dive deep into all of this, and based on this video, I'm just not going to make any more content surrounding this subject ever. So don't really expect that much content in relation to Saints Row, in relation to Deep Silver, or in relation to Volition as a company whatsoever. In fact, I want to try to get back to doing content about other types of video games. I even want to cover new games that are coming out that I actually have interest in. Of course, I do want to get back to talking more about wrestling games and other types of video games as well. One of those games in particular being Spider-Man 2, which at some point I do plan on streaming that game like day one, and I might even do like a full playthrough of that game at some point. But I do want to talk about other games in the future, and I don't want to have this entire channel ended up being focused on games like Saints Row or games that are made by Embracer, or just I don't like talking about sad shit all the time. That's literally the only thing that is making me not want to make videos surrounding the subject, is because the entire situation around the Saints Row reboot and around Volition and around Deep Silver is just f***ing sad, and I don't like talking about sad shit all the time. But yeah, I just wanted to get this video out there just to get my thoughts on the entire situation fully together. So if you're new to the channel, then please do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, tap the bell for notifications so you're notified any time that a brand new video is uploaded. With that being said, my name is Dende, thank you for watching, and yeah, that's about it. Roll outro. Bye.